5 years since it was introduced, it's time for Porsche to facelift the 992 series 911. And boy, is it a big one. In fact, the German maker claims it's as big as the time it went from air-cooled to water-cooled. This is it. Let's check it out. Make no mistake, this is very much a watershed moment, equivalent to when Bob Dylan went electric. And if you're a Porsche enthusiast, well, expect to be irritated, angered, delighted and overwhelmed, because this is the moment when the world-famous rear-engine sports car gets electrified. Of course, Porsche has been toying with the idea of hybrid powertrains since 2010 and had a concept on the GT3R, and it also had, of course, the 918 Spider. But the good bit about the new 911T hybrid is, well, Porsche has done things very differently. One of the ways Porsche has dared to be different is it's gone big. There's no downsizing with the 911T hybrid. And while the base version keeps its twin turbocharged 3-litre inline six, this gets a far larger 3.6 litre with an almighty truck-sized turbocharger. Now, I said Porsche has gone big, but if you look at the pretty pictures of the engine block right now, it's actually a smaller engine. It's 110 millimetres lower than the current 3-litre twin turbo. And better still, look how clean it is. There's no auxiliary belts, there's no drive belts, there's things like a starter motor or climate control, because it doesn't need it. They're electric and the engine is turned over by the transmission. More on that later. Now, with a gigantic turbocharger comes huge turbo lag, and in 2024 that is not acceptable. But Porsche has a solution. Within the large turbocharger is a small 10 kilowatt electric motor, and guess what? Yep, you guessed it, it spins up that turbo at low speeds. Now, there is a second e-motor that's packaged within the 8-speed dual clutch gearbox, probably just in there somewhere, and combined the total output of the electric motors is 48 kilowatts and 150 newton meters of torque. Now, up front is a state-of-the-art 1.9 kilowatt hour battery that's combined with a 400 volt electrical architecture. Now, the battery weighs 27 kilograms alone, which raises the question, why didn't Porsche go full hog with a plug-in hybrid version of the 911? Well, that's easy to answer, because engineers say it would just be too heavy. And in total, the new T-hybrid bolt-on bits, well, they weigh just 50 kilograms, which means the GTS version that sits beside me now only tips the scales at 1,595 kilograms. And that is light in the two-door coupe business. So engine alone, the 3.6 litre naturally aspirated flat six produces 357 kilowatts and 570 newton meters of torque. But with the electrified bits added on, that is boosted to 398 kilowatts and 610 newton meters of torque. Now, acceleration is devastating for the new 911 GTS T hybrid, with 0 to 100 kilometers per hour taking just 3 seconds, 0 to 200 kilometers per hour taking 10.5 seconds, and top speed, well, that's 312 kilometers per hour. But more than the figures, engineers claim that side by side in the real world, this car is quicker than a 911 Turbo S, and that's because that turbo can spool up in just 0.8 seconds. But there is a catch with the new T-hybrid system. While all-wheel drive will follow on later, can you tell what's missing in here? Yep, there's no manual version. It's not possible with this setup, and that's a big shame. One of the problems engineers have had with the new 911 GT3 T-hybrid is just explaining to people how much quicker it is than the 992.1 series it replaces. And one way they have indicated just how much faster it is with Nürburgring lap times. This car beside me is said to be 8.7 seconds faster than the old GTS on the same street tyres. And the association with the Nürburgring is quite handy with the T hybrid, because some people were worried about the battery running out of charge. Well, I don't think you have to worry about that with this car, because this thing has been calibrated to do an entire lap of flat-out driving without ever running out of charge. Now, there's two ways to recoup energy with the new T-hybrid system. The first is using that e-motor, which is packaged within the transmission. Now, that can claw back up to 32 kilowatts. But perhaps more interesting is the e-turbocharger that claws back around 10 kilowatts, because even at its top speed, it's still charging the battery, and that's because the engine is so large and a turbocharger is so huge. It's a really clever, efficient system. And the cleverness of the e-turbo system, well, it continues because there's no wastegate on this turbocharger. What it does is it actually uses the electric motor to slow the turbocharger down and feeds energy back into the battery. It's so efficient. Of course, Porsche being Porsche, they couldn't have left the 911 looks alone, could they, for the 992.2 series? So that explains the introduction of these new active aero flaps that can close at speeds of over 50 kilometers per hour. Now that is also combined with an active splitter you can't really see here. And that again opens and reduces drag at speed. Now combined, Porsche says they have now reduced the drag coefficient from 0.32 to just 0.27. Another small but subtle difference is Porsche designers have relocated the old daytime running lights within these new LED matrix headlamps, and that is an advantage because it's increased the amount of cooling and intake volume for these radiators that sit just behind there. Another welcome feature concerning the new active aerodynamics is when it rains, because the car now knows when it's pouring down, which means it shuts these vents to keep the brake discs dry. Of course, there are some new wheel options, and these are a particular set of smart centre lock wheels, but to the back of the car, there's been some substantial changes. Designers have basically reduced the engine cover here to make it look curvier, while at the back they have, well, simplified this rear tail lamp to make it look like a wider car. Also different is a new diffuser here, a redesigned bumper, and for the GTS version you get these particularly cool twin pipes that are now closer together, a bit like the GT3. Inside the new 992.2, well, things look very familiar, except there has been some big changes. There's a new full digital dashboard here, which is pretty nifty. It has up to 7 different displays, including a full width nav version for the first time that helps when you're touring. There's also been the addition of a new, he can't open it, he can, wireless charger in there, which is handy too. New welcome addition to the standard list of equipment. There's now a heated steering wheel, heated seats, mention the wireless charger, and electric folding mirrors that, let's be honest, should have been standard a long time ago. It's also worth pointing out that the coupe version now becomes a 2-seater because Porsche has deleted the rear 2 seats to save around 10 kilograms of weight. We think that's for emission reasons, but the good news for Australian market, they are a no-cost option to add them back in. We think the new 911 range will arrive before the end of this year in Australia, with the GTS version set to cost around $360,000 plus on roads. It won't be cheap. But the thing is, remember, this is just the beginning, because Porsche will also facelift both its Turbo, Turbo S and GT3, which means the 911's about to get even quicker.